from alcoholism on April 18th, 2013. I have a home group. I have a sponsor, and my sponsor has a sponsor, and I have sponsees. So tradition one, for those of you who weren't here last week, I'm just going to give you a little bit of the history of the traditions. So this comes from the book Pass It On. The traditions evolved from the group's correspondence to Bill Wilson in the New York office, and he saw a need for a set of principles, not rules or laws or regulations. These were first called the 12 Points to Assure Our Future, published for the first time in April 1946 in the Grapevine. Bill saw them as guidelines necessary to the survival, unity, and effectiveness of the fellowship. And they were voted in at our first conference, which was in Cleveland in 1950. So, as I said, the traditions are a set of principles that we ought to follow. I've been reading AA Comes of Age for a better understanding of the traditions, and the traditions require action on our part, not just listening to them. I embrace these spiritual principles and try not to enforce them and become the tradition's police. My hope is that if others see me embracing them, they will want to embrace them as well. So the 12 steps are our message. The 12 traditions protect our message, and the 12 concepts perpetuate our message. Okay. Thank you, Carol, Alex, Tom, and Matthew. I forgot to do that. So tradition one, the first point to assure our future, the short form is our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. The original form, which some people call the long form, says, each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is but a small part of a great whole. AA must continue to live, or most of us will surely die. Hence, our common welfare comes first, but individual welfare follows close afterwards. From page 561 of the big book, it's the first page that precedes the traditions. It says, the unity of Alcoholics Anonymous is the most cherished quality our society has. Our lives, the lives of all to come, depend squarely upon it. We stay whole or AA dies. Without unity, the heart of AA would cease to beat. Our world arteries would no longer carry the life-giving grace of God. His gift to us would be spent aimlessly. Back again in their caves, alcoholics would reproach us and say, what a great thing AA might have been. So I want AA to be here for my children, for my grandchildren, for my great-grandchildren. So I'm going to uphold the traditions. And tonight we're going to be talking about one member, one group, one vote, but not just yet. But I want you to be aware of that, because that's an important part of tradition one. Okay, so tradition one is founded on the principle of humility, which implies, amongst other things, that we relate ourselves rightly to God and to our fellows, that we each see each other as we really are, a small part of a great whole. Seeing each other this way, we can enjoy group harmony. So it is we learn that on matters deeply affecting the groups as a whole, our common welfare has to come first. Our unity as a fellowship must take the first seat out of all the 12 seats. Without group unities, think about this. Our doors would not remain open. Our job as a service structure is to keep the doors open, the coffee warm, and our conference-approved literature available, and to make sure there's a seat available for the new man or woman that enters our fellowship. After that, we are to make sure the new person witnesses a meeting where members share AA in an AA meeting. Sadly, I have witnessed many meetings where it's become group therapy and not the solution. Okay, we are then given 11 other traditions that show us what we ought to do in order to accomplish the goal of unity, allowing our recovery. And notice I use words like ought to or ought not. What in heaven's name holds our groups together? Those who look closely soon have the key to this strange paradox. We cannot keep it unless we give it away. I or anybody else can't survive unless he carries the AA message. And most individuals can't recover unless there is a group. Okay. I want to tell you a little story about Eddie Rickenbacker. Eddie Rickenbacker and his team of co-pilots and commanders and admirals and were lost at sea. He was called the Ace of Ace. He was a very important person in the military. And he later became the president of Eastern Airlines. But he looked with deep concern over his 7 companions that were in 3 rafts bobbing in the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean. And these desperate men had just consumed the 3rd of their 4th oranges. Imagine 3 rafts worth of people and only 4 oranges. And already the 3rd orange is gone, and we don't know when we're going to be rescued. They would have nothing to eat at all had it not been for Captain Cherry, who jammed the fruit into his flight suit just before they ran out of gas and ditched their airplane between Hawaii and New Guinea. What happened with them is their navigation equipment had failed. And so they were lost at sea. But together, they did certain things like, one of the sergeants had no choice but to lie painfully intertwined with their legs either over one another's shoulders or under their arms because of the blistering sun that was going on out there. And they were sobbing, and they began to drink the seawater at night. And morale was plummeting. So Eddie Rickenbacker decided to hold prayer meetings on those rafts. And that was getting them through. And then on the last day, they had another prayer meeting on the 8th day that they were at sea. And they passed out that last orange. And they started yet another prayer session. Afterwards, as he dozed off, a seagull alighted on, he had a fedora. He wore a fedora, which thank God, because that helped with that sun. He slowly moved his hand to seize the bird's leg. The gaunt survivors divided up that meager catch. So God sent them something that they could eat. It was no coincidence, insisted Rickenbacker, that the 2-course dinner had arrived immediately after they had prayed. Although not a churchgoer, Rickenbacker did believe in a great power above. Okay, so had they not come together as a group, none of them would have survived. If one person would have sneakily ate things and not shared it with the rest of the group, they would not have survived. Thus has it been with Alcoholics Anonymous, by faith and by works. We've been able to build upon the lesson of an incredible experience. The 12 traditions of AA, which, God willing, shall sustain us in unity for as long as he may need us. Okay. So we learn to give up the clamors of desires and ambitions within us. We silence those things when we're in a group. That's where the humility comes in. We sacrifice our ambitions and desires for the good of AA. It becomes plain that the group must survive or the individual will not. So the question becomes how to live and work together as a group. And I want to talk a little bit about meetings as opposed to groups, because meetings do not support unity, but groups do. And from the book, from the pamphlet, which is my Bible, it's called The AA Group, Where It All Began. It tells me everything I need to know about a group in AA and what the different components are and what we do. So first I want to tell you about the difference between an open and a closed meeting. The purpose of all group meetings is as the preamble states, for AA members to share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. Towards this end, AA groups have both open and closed meetings. Closed meetings are for AA members only, or for those who have a drinking problem and have a desire to stop drinking. Open meetings are available to anyone interested in Alcoholics Anonymous and their program of recovery from alcoholism. Non-alcoholics may attend, but they may attend as observers only. They may not participate. So what makes a meeting different than a group? Well, a group is registered with the General Service Office. Groups have things like GSRs and intergroup reps and a treasurer and an overall group chair. And they divide their money when it comes in to different parts of AA. My group sends part of the money we take in the treasury to the General Service Office in New York. We send part to CNE, which is Southeast New York, our area, and we send part of it to in our local intergroup. So we are being a part of the spiritual structure of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. So if you notice, tradition one, which is group unity, is one whole side of the triangle, which means it's very important. So this means I'm a member of one home group, one member, one group, one vote. I really don't care how many groups you claim are your home groups. You can't vote in all of them. You can only be a voting member of one group's business meeting because you're going to throw those numbers off at the General Service Office. I don't care if you have 15 home groups and you celebrate your anniversary in all those home groups. I don't care. Tradition one tells me that I can only vote in one business meeting. One member, one group, one vote. Okay. So what are some of the ways that we can break group unity? We do this when we're at a meeting and address ourselves as alcoholics and addicts. This is what's known as an ANDA. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, and my great-great-grand sponsor, Miss Liz Bailey, used to say, respect the house you're in. If you want to talk about drugs, there are many other fellowships. Besides that, AA doesn't care what other issues you have. AA is a singleness of purpose fellowship. We only do one thing, and we do that one thing well, and that's help people with alcoholism. So we all have other outside issues, but AA is not interested in your outside issues. You can be many things in an alcoholic, but this is AA. What I want you to think about is the newcomer that walks through the door who is sent here for their alcoholism. And they're sitting at the meeting and they're hearing people address themselves as addicts and alcoholics, or they're telling their story and it includes drugs. And the person is going to say, am I in the right place? Am I in the right fellowship? So we don't want to do that. We want them to feel welcome, that they belong as a part of AA. The same thing goes with, this is my pet peeve, chanting. It works if you work it, so work it, you're worth it. Work, 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 work. That makes us look like a cult. So if people say AA is a cult, when we do things like that, that makes us appear cultish. So that kind of breaks up unity. Here's another thing that disrupts group unity. If I raise my hand to share, and I don't say my name is Deb, I'm an alcoholic, and everyone screams at me, who are you? You've just separated me from everyone in the group. You just singled me out. That's not group unity. So how about when you're in a topic meeting and someone starts sharing the topic, they want to talk about their pet that just passed away. Remember, we're in a lifeboat together, and you just sawed off half the boat, and we're going to end up sinking together. We should be focusing on our common solution. So we have the shades for the 12 steps. They're very self-explanatory. But the shades for the traditions were cut off to fit what would, to put what would fit on those shades. So the best way to understand the traditions is by reading the original form, the long form, on either page 189 of the 12 and 12 or page 563 of your big book, or from Bill Wilson's articles about the traditions. So tradition 1 and tradition 12, they are our bookends. They hold traditions 2 through 11 together. Tradition 1 is the why we do it. Tradition 12 is the how we do it. Traditions 2, 3, 4, and 5 are about the group. Traditions 6, 7, and 8 are about money. And traditions 9, 10, and 11, we call them the antis, the things that we ought never do. And when we say principles before personalities, it's the spiritual principles of our 36 principles, the steps, the traditions, and the concept. They come way before my big personality. I have to calm my personality when I'm in a group so that everyone feels like they're a part of and I'm not taking over their groups. Okay, so the unity of AA is the most cherished quality our society has. Our lives and the lives of all to come depend squarely upon it. We have to stay whole or AA will die. Without unity, the heart of AA would cease to beat and our world arteries would no longer carry the life-giving grace of God. His gift to us would be spent aimlessly. That's why no personal sacrifice is too great for the preservation of the fellowship. And no one person comes before the welfare of the group. So when the group says things like the most important person in the group is the newcomer, you're giving out misinformation. What we have is the alcoholic that still suffers is the most important person after the group. The old timer is not the most important person. The newcomer is not. It's the alcoholic that still suffers. And that could be anyone with any amount of time in AA. Maybe they're going through untreated alcoholism. Maybe they're dying in the rooms of AA. They are the most important people. The newcomers are the lifeblood of AA. But the group comes first, the suffering alcoholic second, and all of us afterwards. In the pamphlet, The 12 Traditions Illustrated, it says, our brother, the noisy drunk who insists on disrupting the meeting, it is okay for you to invite him to leave or to leave the meeting. Someone can take him outside and talk to them for a while. Do you remember what it was like when you were drunk? We don't turn away drunks from AA. Where else are they going to go? But if they're noisy drunks, we try and help them. We don't let them take our meeting, hijack our meeting, but people kindly take them outside and talk to them for a little bit. And we bring them back in when they're in better shape to hear the message. When we do this, we're putting our common welfare first. Okay. But it is in his welfare too, if he's ever going to get sober. So the group must go on functioning, so we're ready for him when he comes back. Each of these other 11 traditions explains one specific way to protect the unity of the fellowship and the Alcoholics Anonymous group. So I'm going to read you AA's Declaration of Unity. This we owe to AA's future, to place our common welfare first, to keep our fellowship united. For on AA unity depends our lives and the lives of those to come. Okay. I want to read you a story that one of the people that were here last week and who's going to be a presenter coming up. When I was doing Tradition 1, they had sent me a copy of something that I could use that they experienced or that they saw someone else experience. I have to remember that I have rights. You know, the traditions tell me I have rights, but the traditions also teach me that my responsibilities to Alcoholics Anonymous outweighs my rights. Okay. So the title of this little story is One Member, One Group, One Vote. And the person wrote, but what would happen to me? What would happen without me? My case is different. Technically, it's not a group, but I'm a special exception. They need my help. So I have the right of participation in one area, one district, one home group. This concept has kept me in line for a few years now. Thank God for you guys. When I was new, I thought I had a right to belong to multiple groups. I once had AA service positions all over Central Oregon. I had no idea what the concept of a home group was. I just assumed that I had the right to be heard and to do service and to vote at any meeting I attended. So I did. I got a lot done too, by the way. I was successful in having the Lord's Prayer removed from the majority of all the groups around Central Oregon. To this day, there are still only 2 groups remaining in my city that close with the Lord's Prayer. I did eventually get a service sponsor who helped me to learn what a home group was, not by choice, but more of a mandated service sponsor. He appointed himself to that position. I was sitting up at a table at what was probably my 3rd business meeting of the month when Sean came up to me, introduced himself as my service sponsor, and he slapped my first service manual down in front of me on the table. He explained to me that he had taken the liberty of pre-highlighting some things I needed to read. Anyone want to take a guess at what part it was? You guessed it, home group membership. That part about being one amongst many, one member, one group, one vote. I was appalled. But I was definitely intrigued with this new book that I had not seen before. I'd never even heard of the 12 concepts. I thought this was just a 12-step program. And the traditions, well, back then, those were, of course, just something to give the old-timers something to complain about. I'm happy to report that since having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, my rights as an AA member don't seem to mean as much today as my responsibilities as an AA member. I have learned how to be one amongst many, how to sacrifice personal ambition for the common good, and I have reluctantly been able to put my ego aside and have been a member of only one group at a time since then. I found out, however, that if I wanted to do additional service outside of my group, and my group feels as though I'm pulling my weight, there are lots of different levels of service outside of the group that I've been able to be a part of. Intergroup, district, committee work. But I understand today that I am a member of only one home group, and I am responsible to that group first. I am responsible for making sure I support my home group first and foremost, both monetarily and physically. My home group is where I cast my vote, not just on group issues, but AA as a whole issues as well. The true meaning of anonymity, being one amongst many. Thank you guys for helping me, for having love and tolerance with me. I've come to really appreciate my teachers, the members who have come before me, who gently help me and guide me in the right direction, even when I think I know better, even when I believe my case is different and I should be the exception. And what we have from the grapevine is a checklist for all the traditions. And for tradition 1, it asks me, am I in my group a healing, mending, integrating person? Or am I sometimes divisive? Do I ever gossip and take another's inventory? Am I a peacemaker, or do I foster arguments with statements such as, just for the sake of discussion? Am I gentle with those who rub me the wrong way, or am I sometimes abrasive? Guilty. Done that. Do I make competitive AA remarks such as comparing one group with another or contrasting AA in one place with AA in another? I was taught by Debbie D that if I'm new to a home group, to keep my mouth shut for 6 months at least and listen to how the group functions in their business meetings before I say, in my group, they did blah, blah, blah. Do I ever put down some AA activities for not participating in this or that aspect of AA? Am I informed about AA as a whole? Do I support AA as a whole in every way I can, or just the parts I understand and approve of? Am I as considerate of AA members as I want them to be of me? Do I spout platitudes about love while indulging in and secretly justifying behavior that bristles with hostility? This is tradition one. I love the traditions. I hope that I've explained it in a way that everyone has understanding. Thank you so much.